Singapore's on the broken track. Let's change it. And firing a chief is definitely very simple. Right? This is from our dear Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, right, in 1984. Now, today I'm going to talk about, of course, the hottest topic in town, right? Lee Hsien Yang becomes a political refugee officially, and then the Oxley issue. But before that, right, let's get back to some of the highlights of the week of vaccine injury. This happens in, I would say, Hong Kong, right? Coroner's inquiry, open coroner's court. And the coroner actually stated some problems with the vaccine, which he believes, right, have caused the death of a 48-year-old man, was sent to the hospital in Hong Kong in 2021. Okay, and this man have heart problems when he was sent in. Okay, however, there's no blockage, but it was misdiagnosed as a blockage. So they given him the blood thinner, and later on, it complicates his situation, and he died of brain hemorrhage. That means brain bleeding. Now, when you have a stroke, right, the last thing you do is to actually give blood thinner, because that would actually aggravate the problem, right? But this is a very rare case, so-called. It has never happened that heart got problem, then brain also got problem, right? They never faced this. So the coroner actually have said that most probably the vaccine have caused both situations. And when the coroner do the autopsy, it was found that the heart and the lungs have inflammation, as well as a brain, right? But there's no blockage in heart. So this misdiagnosis actually caused the death. And it's very rare for a patient to have an inflammation with the heart, lungs, and as well as a brain, right? And it is case that he believes that it was caused by the vaccine that he took 2 weeks before his death. Now, of course, later on, the so-called vaccine expert, start to say, no, the vaccine won't cause that and that. Actually, to me, I don't believe. I think it's bullshit. It is a rare case. And we have already know Pfizer documents have came out. Okay, the Pfizer papers have actually came out, which have confirmed what I have said way back in 2021. It have no efficacy of prevention of transmission and infection. And it also have the problems of not staying at the injection site, but travels to the whole body, all the organs. And that will cause problems like inflammation of the organs, like the heart, the lungs, even the brain barriers, it can breach. Pfizer actually knew, right, way back then. Like, there's nothing strange about that. So the expert is actually not reliable in that sense when they try to discount the possibility of that. Okay. So now Singapore have passed a law, I think early this year or last year, to say that if a person die of unknown reason, right? Last time when you die suddenly, you are supposed to have an autopsy. The coroner will actually go and find out the cause of the death. But he passed the law that says that it might not be necessary for some autopsy to be done. Right? Actually, it doesn't make sense. Every death, and each and every death should be determined the causes of such situation, especially when there's a sudden death, right? And if you do not do autopsy like what the Hong Kong government have done, we would not have known that such situation can happen. And with this case, it will actually reminds doctors at the front line that one may seems to have a heart problem, but he might even have a brain breathing at the same time. And they must be very careful when they want to prescribe blood thinner. Right? That is a lesson learned. There's nothing we can do about people who have taken the jab, no matter how many times. There's nothing we can do about that. But at least with these experiences with autopsy, we learn something. Don't jump into conclusion that once you have a difficult heart problems and all that, it might be just inflammation, is inflammatory situation of the heart, might not be a blockage. And you might have a symptom, the brain have a problem of breathing. If you give blood thinner, then you will kill him. Okay? So this is so. Okay, back to the main issue. Mr. Lee Hsien Yang have announced this week. It's the big news. When I saw this news, I was, wow, okay. I immediately know that it is a big news. But some people still cannot figure out what is happening. Now, when Lee Hsien Yang actually posted this early this week, he says, I am a political refugee from Singapore under the 1955 UN Refugee Convention. It means, when he states this, it means that he have actually applied for political refuge and was accepted. His application was accepted. Right? It means that the country that issued or accepted his application, most probably the wife also, has basically agreed that the reasons that he has raised in his application are valid, are political persecution. And there are reasons to believe that if he is to leave the country, that means United Kingdom, right, UK, and return to Singapore, he will face political persecution. That's not what I say one. Right? That's not also only what Lee Hsien Yang says. In fact, the UK government actually agrees that there's such a very high risk. That's why political refuge has been granted to him and the wife. And the subsequent paragraph, he said, that was the reason that why he seek political refuge in UK. In 2017, my sister Wei Ling and I declared we do not trust Hsien Loong as a brother or as a leader. We stated that we feared the abuse of the organs of the Singapore state against us and against my family. Right? Because of that risk, I was unable to attend Wei Ling's funeral. I sought asylum protection in 2022. He left Singapore in 2022 and immediately he applied for asylum in UK. The Singapore government's attacks against me are in the public record. Public record, that means it was publicized. Okay? They prosecuted my son, brought disciplinary proceedings against my wife, and launched a bogus police investigation that has dragged on for years. On the basis of these facts, the UK government, so-called, has determined that I face a well-founded risk of persecution and cannot safely return to Singapore. I sought asylum protection as a last resort. I remain a Singapore citizen and hope that someday you will become safe to return home. Of course, the government immediately issued a response. They said, oh, Lee Hsien Yang and a wife are not prevented to come back to Singapore. Of course lah. You have a passport, right? Singapore passport, to come back is easy, right? But to come back and later to leave Singapore again, I don't think he can do it. That is something that not promised by the Singapore government. And that is precisely why he sought asylum as a political refugee in United Kingdom, right? So what the Singapore government said is only half truth. It didn't promise safety or freedom of movement in and out of Singapore for Mr. Lee Hsien Yang and wife. Okay. Now, this is a big thing. Why? Normally, in the past, when we have a Cold War, for example, like Soviet Union against the Western powers, the NATO. So normally people ran away from Soviet Union, whether it's from the East Germany or Russia or Ukraine, right, into the West, they seek asylum. And normally it was granted because they were actually at a Cold War. They don't trust each other. But in this case, UK is actually Singapore's ally, right? Strategic ally, whether it's in defense or otherwise. But even the UK government thinks that what Singapore government have done to Mr. Lee Hsien Yang and his family constitute a risk of political persecution. And Lee Hsien Yang is not just nobody. He is the son of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And that is a big thing, you know. It says a lot of credibility dented in the PAP government. Right? You see, it's a big thing because all over the world, it was reported. Well, even in Hong Kong, I didn't put it up. Right? The Guardian, the Financial Times, even the New York Times reported. Right? And people, the PAPIB, very funny one, start to doubt. He said he applied for political refuge, but was it given and all that? Right? That was the answer. This is from BBC, right? They did a check with the UK government, and they interviewed Mr. Lee Hsien Yang, and Mr. Lee Hsien Yang actually showed BBC the documents, the full documents, and the reply from the UK government. And it was confirmed that he was granted 5 years of refuge, asylum in UK. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Okay? So the key thing is this. As a son of a LKY, who is LKY? They call him the father of Singapore and all that. Actually, I don't regard LKY as the father of Singapore. The first prominent politician who fought for independence of Singapore is actually David Marshall. Right? But he failed, of course, but he was the first one. LKY actually didn't want independence for Singapore, remember? He wanted a merger with Malaya Federation. Right? It's only bo pian. Cannot kick out, then Singapore declared independence. Right? Never mind, that is a small matter. Right? But LKY is the founder of the People's Action Party, which is actually in power right now. And of course, as a critic of LKY myself, right, there's nothing personal. Nothing personal. I just felt that what he has done to a lot of political opponents and critics, right, are unjustifiable. Jail without trial under the ISA, from few months to few years to 10 years to 20 years to 30 years, 32 years, the record. Right? That is unjustifiable. If you want, just go to court, charge them if you have full evidence. If not, then you're released. That's the rule of law. Right? Detention without trial for a long period of time is unjustifiable. Right? And it is inhumane. Why? What's the most valuable in life? It's not money, it's not assets, it's nothing else but time, the time of your life. Right? That's the most valuable thing of a human being. And you wasted so many people's life in tens of years. Right? That's cruel. Right? That's even cruel than shooting them dead. Put it that way. Right? But I have to say, well, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew have contributed to the prosperity to most Singaporeans. Right? We have grown from a developing countries to an expensive country. Although expensive, but our quality of life did improve. But now it's stagnant. But never mind, there are improvements. There were improvements in the past. No doubt about that. Okay? It's just that I felt that he has done a disservice to the country by creating a monster out of our political system, which could be abused if he falls in the wrong hands. And not only I think so, even Lee Kuan Yew himself have said the same thing. If this government, this political system falls into the wrong hand, we are all abased. We are gone. We will be destroyed. Like, he knew the risk, but he did it anyway. And unfortunately, he was the victim of his own creation. When he get, I will explain that later. Right? But now, I want to address one of a Chinese newscaster, right? News anchor, Zhang Haijie. It's in Mandarin. If you cannot understand, I will explain what she says later. No need to explain that. Basically, she was just criticizing or scolding Lee Hsien Yang as unfilial son of LKY. Let's watch this.
相信很多新加坡人这2天都被这则新闻惊掉了下巴。李显阳遭政治迫害了吗？我倒认为他的叛逆行为重重毁了家族和新加坡的名声。英国卫报说，李显阳一家遭受到了新加坡政府的攻击和迫害。李显阳呢，也在脸书发文证实他已经向英国申请了政治庇护，而且自己的政治难民身份已经获得了批准。我们先来了解一下什么是政治庇护。当一个人能够证明自己曾经受过迫害，或确实受到迫害的恐惧，并且呢所遭受到的迫害是来自种族、宗教、国籍、社会团体或政见，就可以提出政治庇护的申请。外国人获得了某个国家的政治庇护呢，就可以入境、居留并得到保护。提供庇护的国家也可以拒绝引渡。联合国的领土庇护宣言指出，对个人提供庇护是一个国家的行使主权。然而呢，新加坡政府一再地强调，李显阳夫妇是可以自由回返新加坡，他们并没有受到任何法律限制，说李显阳是遭受迫害的受害者是毫无根据的。根 根据英国《金融时报》报道，获得政治庇护显示英国接受了李显阳和妻子林学芬说的，那就是李显龙以国家的力量阻断了李显阳的儿子李成武在新加坡参政，并有朝一日成为总理的机会。这个推论你信吗？数码发展及新闻部强调，新加坡司法体系是公正的，并独立作出决定，所有的法律结论都经过独立司法机关的充分记录和公开调查。Hello， 李显阳可不这么认为。他接受《卫报》访问时，酸了自己的父亲，说李光耀在新加坡建立了独裁政权。李显阳还对新加坡做出了一系列的指控，说政府对他进行攻击。李显阳在拆他父亲的台。建国总理李光耀先生一生的丰功伟绩之一，就是建立了新加坡的法治模式，堪称亚洲法治社会的典范。李显阳是怎么想的？我除了无语之外，脑袋里只有一个词：逆子。
I'll summarize what she said, right? Basically, she said that Lee Hsien Yang has successfully applied for asylum from UK, and the UK government have granted it. But she questioned such move by UK government. The first thing I want to ask her, well, on what basis, on what position she is in to question the decision of the UK government, right? And she justified her doubts by saying that, well, Lee Hsien Yang says persecution, political persecution through the courts, this and that. And she said, Singapore have a rule of law. Okay? Right? Have a rule of law. And that the father, Lee Kuan Yew, has spent his whole life to build a country with a rule of law. Of course, there are certain criticism of Lee Hsien Yang about the system we have right now and this and that, but that is beside the point. Right? This is her argument. Just like I was mentioning, we have so many political detainees throughout our history, a very short history. And most of them occurred during the LKY's era. What rule of law when you are talking about when people can be detained under ISA without trial for decades, not 1 decade, not 2 decades, but 3 decades. Right? And rule of law itself, the justice system consists of three parts: legislative, the lawmaking, right? The second part is actually the prosecution, the prosecutor, the AGC. Then the third part, of course, is the judges, the court. So rule of law is not just about the court, right? It's about these three. We don't talk about long time. Long time. I've gone through myself for 54 years of my life. I've seen a lot of political refugees or detainees. But the 4 most prominent ones so far who have been in exile in other places in US or UK, not China, not other places. Our allies, UK and US. Tan Hua Piao in UK, right? Francis Sell passed away already in US. Tân Liang Ho in Australia. Australia is also one of our allies in defense, the Five Eye, right? And now Mr. Lee Hsien Yang in UK. These are prominent politicians or political figures. It is not just today that we have such situation, Maybe Zhang Haijie, maybe you do not know her background. She is a new citizen or naturalized citizens from China, mainland China. I'll go back to her background a bit later, right? So When she said Singapore was built with a rule of law by LKY, I was scratching my head. My goodness, what do you know about rule of law? Right? Most Singaporeans, in their mind, they know what is happening in Singapore history, especially those who have lived long enough like me, or even longer than me. Like I always say, my parents always say, hey, quiet, quiet, don't anyhow say anything, or else matalia. Right? That is a rule of fear more than rule of law. Right? The persecution of politicians and political activists is nothing new. Nothing new at all. If this happens even to LKY's son, it may be surprising in my lifetime that I'm very surprised to see this, but right, it's not something that is out of unexpected results, because they have done it. LKY used to have one very famous speeches that he has made in 1950s. 1950s, I think, before he came into power. Right? He was talking about political persecution and the control of the media. Right? He was saying that it's to suppress people. It's like having sex. The first time you do it, you find it very difficult. But you keep, the second time and third time you keep doing it, it becomes a pressure. And that's what he says before he come into power. I have to go and find that video records. That's exactly what he says. But when he came into power, he did exactly the same. Suppression of critics, political opponents. Rule of law? Are you kidding me? Well, maybe in the business world, if you have a civil cases, civil courts, right? Civil cases, because as long as it doesn't involve the AGC in charging people with a political exposure, maybe we have a rule of law, right? But if it's involving political sensitive things, right? The question always lies on the prosecutor. Right? Just like Iswaran. Why technically a corruption charges with the law written so plain and simple that says that the presumption of corruption is that once you accept money above $50 from anyone, it will presume to be a corruption with corruption intent. But they changed the charge to a lesser one, to 165, which has never been used before, because it's basically redundant, right? It's just saying that civil servant, a public servant have received money, unauthorized receipt of money from anyone, right? That is not really a corruption charge. That is not even under the Prevention of Corruption Act. That was made redundant, practically redundant, because we have the corruption charges. We have presumption of corruption intent. When you receive money as a public servant, when you receive money, immediately it's presumed that there's corruption intent. And they never explain why. They did explain, they are afraid that the evidence will be challenged or not fully, but that's beside the point. If you feel that you don't have a strong evidence, why charge him as a corruption charges in the first place? Right? And for the same case, right, Ong Meng Seng and David Lam both gave money. Okay lah, Ong Meng Seng give more lah, or favors or goodies more lah. But why Ong Meng Seng is being charged and David Lam is just given a stern warning? So prosecution have a lot of power within the justice system. And whether it's a rule of law or not, it actually means, right, the discretion, huge amount of discretion given to the prosecution. That is important. Whether you have rule of law, you have to look at that. So Zhang Hai when she says, oh, LKY built a system of rule of law, I was scratching my head. Anyone who are born here, live a whole life here, experience the daily life and the daily happenings throughout the 5 decades in the past, right, could not believe what she said. When we talk about legislation, the POFMA, very simple, just recent only. POFMA, it has been abused. To me, it has been weaponized by PAP to use against critics like me. And even activists, even social media. Why? Very basically, TOC have run another article, when the mainstream media, like Straits Times, recently reported, made a mistake in his report. There was one case of a murder in Clementi. The one who is being murdered, who is being killed, are from the RSCs. But the one who murdered him, right, was not from RSC. But Straits Times reported that he was from RSC also. Right? But the government didn't POFMA Straits Times. It just make clarification. And I agree with that. For such thing, what you need to do is make clarification. Most of the POFMA that comes out against all the critics like me and all that, you just need clarification. You do not need POFMA. Because POFMA, the original so-called intent, right, as explained before they set the law, it's about falsehood. It's not about opinion. 讲得比唱的还要好听啊！ Right? We say talk sing song lah. After it done, is switch already. Right? And to have POFMA, it must be falsely and intentionally made, right, to undermine social stability, to have impact, to harm the society or the nation. Right? But look at the POFMA. Kucing kurat thing also POFMA. Right? Just a simple erroneous thing, you also POFMA, which can be done to clarification. You say there's a rule of law in that. More of a discretion. They will not POFMA the mainstream media. You know why? Because if they POFMA the mainstream media, which under their control, because they actually paid Straits Times, the SPH, so much money every year, right? And they are going to tell the whole world, the Singaporeans, that, they are carrying falsehood. Then who else will believe the mainstream media in the end, which actually serve the political masters? That's why they will never POFMA Straits Times or CNA. Right? CNA quietly go and change. Right? For Straits Times, clarification. But for media like TOC, independent, they will POFMA them. Why? And JOM also, JOM, JOM. Because they are not under their control. They want to discredit them. Right? So it has been weaponized. It's not rule of law, it's rule by law in that sense. And we have someone from the mainstream media who says that Singapore have rule of law. Right? Zhang Haijie graduated in 1993 from the Beijing School of Media. Right? That's her profile. Right? She came to Singapore, I think in late 1990s, employed by MediaCorp, or back then it's a TCS. Right? And married to Singaporeans. I think she's naturalized as a Singaporean citizen. But before that, when in China, it's very simple. Anyone who want to go to the media and work in the media, right, must succumb to the government, the Chinese government, right? The Chinese government concept is, media is very important for them, just like Singapore. Sama-sama. Right? Singapore looks more like a communist country, run by a communist party, because the concept is the same. Must control the media. So she was said to be a member of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, youth wing. Is a very powerful, some of the top politicians or top leaders in the past, like Wu Jintao and all that, comes from the youth wing, right? Communist Party of China, youth wing. She was one of the Communist Party member. And you know what? In China, the concept of justice system is very different from us. I'm not saying that who is right and who is wrong, because the situation in China is very different. Because the place is huge, right? You want to run a country like that, you must have a different methodology. But it doesn't mean that for a small country like that, we should use the same methodology. The concept of rule of law is this. Now, in 2019, or from 2016 to 2019, there are some unrest in Hong Kong. Okay, so people were charged in the court, but the justice system actually released them, because the Hong Kong system inherited the British system, the common law, right? But to the Chinese masters, the CCP, the Communist Party in China, at one point of time, the leaders actually commented, they always like to say, 我们是法治国家, that means we are a country of law and order. Their 法治 is not rule of law. It's actually law and order, a justice system, right? Run by a country of a justice system. But to them, right, the law should serve the Communist Party or the ruling party, so-called, to serve the government. Right? There's a very distinctive difference down here, the concept. To the Hong Kongers or to the British subject or the British common law, the law of justice is part of the separation of powers. It acts as a checks and balance, part of the powers that balances the powers of a legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. It's independent. It should be independent from the executive. Right? But to the communists, the Chinese government, their concept is different. The law is to serve the government. That means they do not believe in the separation of powers. Right? So no wonder Zhang Haijie actually say in Chinese, 我们是法治国家, or Lee Kuan Yew have built a system of rule of law, 建立了法治的国家. That's why she's mistaken. She's using her communist understanding of law and justice system to apply to Singapore system. Because we follow the common law. We believe in separation of powers. And that is the basis of democracy. While in China, they do not have democracy. The system of democracy, that is the main fundamental difference. I'm not saying who is right and who is wrong, because different places need different type of governance. I'm just saying that Zhang Haijie is misunderstood what is meant by rule of law. Right? And from then, you're saying that, Lee Hsien Yang is criticizing the very system that was built up by his own father. That's why he's unfailure. 逆子. Now, this is a moral judgment that she put on Lee Hsien Yang. Right? But look, in Chinese, I'm partly Chinese educated, right? Where's something called 大义灭亲. In English, translated to English is, we put justice or put humanity and justice before our family relations or family ties. It means that if any of my family members, even my father, have broke the law or done something very harmful to the society, I will raise objection, even report police against him. Am I unfair to do that? No. You did it out of public good. That is 大义, that means in public good, right? Public justice against your own family members, even your father or your parents. So if we believe that the system that was created by Lee Kuan Yew, actually the political system, I think the economic system is perfectly okay. It's just the political system that even Lee Kuan Yew himself has admitted directly or implicitly that is actually highly concentration of power within a few people. Few people means the cabinet. And if it falls into the wrong hand, it can do great harm to the whole country. Right? And you believe that is bad, and you raise objection or raise the problems of such system that was created by your own father, Lee Kuan Yew. That's with respect to Lee Hsien Yang. Does it mean that he's unfair to his father? No. And to put it into perspective, even if he disagreed with the fathers in creating such a system, he wanted to fulfill his father's last wish of demolishing the house at 38 Oxley, doing all he can, even risk, or even not risk lah, right? Basically, even to face persecution by the very government, the very ruling party that his father have created, right? Just to follow the father's wish, a will. Is this that unfair, son? What is Zhang Haijie talking about? If you go against the father's wish and last will, if the will is not against the public good, right? That is unfair, right? But you are doing what exactly or what your father wishes to do with his own property, the last wish, the last will. And yet you are talking about, well, you are being unfair. Hey, talk up, man. Right? Right? It's talk up. No. So, of course, Lee Hsien Yang have repeatedly emphasized that he is just carrying out the will of his father as a will executor, right? To demolish the house at 38 Oxley after his sister passed away, no longer stay in the house. That was written explicitly in the will, right? I can show you the will. This is the will. This is the will that's explicitly stated with uncertain terms what Lee Kuan Yew wants to do with the house. In no uncertain terms. Okay? In no uncertain terms. He says, I further declare that it is my wish and the wish of my late wife, Hua Gek Chu, that our house at 38 Oxley Road, the house, right, be demolished immediately after my death, or if my daughter, Wei Ling, who prefer to continue living in the original house immediately after she moves out of the house. I would ask each of my children to ensure our wishes with respect to the demolition of the house be carried out. If our children are unable to demolish the house as a result of any changes in the law, rules, or regulation binding them, it is my wish that house never be opened to others except my children, their families, and descendants. My view on this has been made public before and remains unchanged. Remember, my statement of wishes in this paragraph 7 may be publicly disclosed, notwithstanding that the rest of my will is private. So so now I want to ask you, by putting up this will of Lee Kuan Yew, did Lee Hsien Loong misrepresented his father? Lee Kuan Yew have stated in no uncertain terms this is his last wish, and has stated he has made it public, and indeed he has made it public, that the house should be demolished. And in many instances, his view is if nobody is staying in the house will just turn into rubbish, turn bad. And he did not want it to happen to his house. Though so did Lee Hsien Yang misrepresented that. It is his view. So the PAP government accused him for misrepresenting by saying that, Lee Kuan Yew was open, so-called, to other options, right? Open to other options, right? And they put up 2 letters which Lee Kuan Yew have sent to the cabinet while he was alive, right? One of them is this. This is very important messages. Anyone who look at this is the first letters. Can they conclude in no uncertain terms? That LKY has actually is open to other options. The first letter that he wrote to the cabinet stated here. There's no date. Okay, I read. 38 Oxley Road, right? He says, I have discussed with my family many a time. They agreed with me that 38 Oxley Road should not be kept as a kind of relic for people to tramp through. He did not want other people to just walk through in and out his house, take photos of it or whatever else they want, but demolish it after I'm gone. Right? So he is very consistent in this. Okay, even in his will. I have seen too many places which are kept frozen in time. My most vivid memory is of a Nero's final home, that of a British Navy commander of the Indian Ocean Fleet in New Delhi. It was once a grand building, kept as a monument with people tramping in and out. It became shabby. It is not worth the restoration unless they restore it just for the people to look at it. 38 Oxley Road has no merit as architectural. So please respect my wish to have it demolished when I am no longer around. And with his signature. Right? No uncertain terms, huh? You want to take pictures, take photos as a memory or display, go and take it, but demolish it after you have done so. Right? No uncertain terms. Now, what they meant that LKY have so-called second option is this letter, dated 27 December 2011. Right? You read carefully. Does it seem to imply that LKY have finally are open to a second other option? Right? Cabinet 38 Oxley Road. Right? Cabinet members are unanimously right that 38 Oxley Road should not be demolished as I wanted. That means he says, you people in the cabinet right, did not want to demolish the 38 Oxley Road as I wanted it to be. I reflected on this and decided that if 38 Oxley Road is to be preserved, it needs to have the foundations reinforced and the whole building refurbished. It must then be let out for people to live in. An empty building will soon decline and decay. Very consistent. Right? Very consistent. It is taught. Even what he's saying is this: you bloody people in the cabinet, right, did not want to preserve it and not demolish it as I wish. And lan I popian, because you have the power, you have the Land Acquisition Act, you have the Preservation of a Heritage Act, whatever act, the power, the law is with you. I'm not in the cabinet, right? So I reflected on this. Okay lah, if you want it to be so, to be preserved. But I'm not going to let you to use it for people to be a monument, walk in and out, walk in and out. I want it, if you want it to preserve it, you must, right, you reinforce the foundation and the whole building must be refurbished. And then people must live in it instead of letting people to make it out of a museum like that, like a temple like that, for people to walk in and out to pay respect to me. He didn't want it to be a temple for his legacy. It must then let out for people to live in. Okay? Why? Very consistent, because he believed that any so-called monument, right, in all over the world of the great people, if you leave it as an empty building, it will soon decline and decay. Right? But this is out of desperation. This is not his wish. His wish is this: you bloody people defy me. I reflect on it. I bo pian, I lan, I bo pian. Never mind. Right? Since you want it to be so, to preserve it, then you make sure you bloody hell you don't turn it into a temple or a monument. You better let people live in it so that people can take care of the place. And it must be reinforced. Does it sound like he's open to an option? Or rather, he was forced in the corner, begging them to do it? And I think when he wrote this letter, he starts to feel the thing that he have created a monster. A monster, a system of monster that would even defy his wish, his last wish, to demolish the building. And I think he started to reflect the same thing. Bloody hell, I have created a monster with high concentration of power. They can do anything when they want if they are in power. And that's why he started to say, if PAP loses and a rout government came into power. We are finished. Why? Because he understands the monster. The system has turned in a big monster, could even defy him. If the system can defy him as a limpe, number one in Singapore in the past, who else would they respect? This is Lee Hsien Yang's last words before he fell very ill and passed away eventually this year. Okay? And he says, Papa was led by Long, that means Lee Hsien Long, to believe that Oxley Road had been gazetted by the government, which is not. Up to now, it's not gazetted. Right? But somehow, according to other documents, other emails that he has sent to his own lawyers, right? It seems that LKY at that particular time frame, 2011 to 2014, seems to think that his house has been gazetted for preservation as a heritage, right? And Dr. Lee Hsien Yang explained is because Lee Hsien Loong, who was the prime minister then, somehow led Papa LKY to believe that he has been gazetted. Hey, hello. When Lee Hsien Loong was the prime minister, he should know whether his own house, his father's house, had been gazetted or not. Correct? This was the background to Leong's insistence that Papa should change his will to give Oxley Road to Loan alone. Indeed, Pa wrote to his lawyer, Hua Kim Lee of Lee and Lee on 6 September 2012, saying, although it has been gazetted as a heritage house, it is still mine as owner. Pa also said, but the house is still mine, and I can, in my will, give Link the right to stay on in house. Right? That means you say, okay lah, you gazette lah, never mind. I still own the house. Lim Pei still own the house. I will give Wei Ling the right to live in the house when I pass on. Right? Loon eventually persuaded Papa that since Oxley had been gazetted, it was fertile to keep Papa's direction to demolish Oxley in his will. That means, as I said, somehow Lee Kuan Yew was made to think, okay lah, bo pian lah, lan lah, right? This cabinet have decided to defy my will, right? So I cannot do anything about it. Go against the government. Go against the very monster that have created. Right? So the will should change. Right? Instead of demolishing Oxley. In late 2013, Pa began to doubt the truth that Oxley had been gazetted. You see, it's very strange, you know. Lee Kuan Yew should go and double check, fact check earlier, right? Why up to 2013? Then he began to doubt. On the evening of 29 November 2013, LKY discussed with his lawyer, Kim Lee, the possibility of a degazetting of 38 Oxley Road after he died. Papa was concerned that the government will reverse course after his death so as to benefit Loon. That means Lee Hsien Loong wants LKY to say, okay lah, it's going to be gazetted, must well give this house to me. I do not know why, okay? the logic I cannot understand. But this is what is being said by Lee Hsien Yang. And this was not challenged by Lee Hsien Long when she posted this. Right? Okay. He also made Kim Lee recap what was in his will in force at the time, dated 2nd of November 2012. Contrary to what Loon has alleged, Pa knew all full well the contents of his prior will when he signed his last will, December 2013. Papa's discussion with Kim Lee were with a view to making changes to his 2012 will. Several emails between Pa and Kim Lee record parts of this discussion and Pa's LKY's instruction. LKY have come to a view that the government would reverse course on the gazetting of 38 Oxley Road after his death, benefiting Loon as the result. This was what I believe led Pa to decide to revert to reinstate the provision to demolish the house, which had always been his unwavering wish, and also to grant me the right to live in the house as long as I wish. And indeed, she lived until the day she died. What Lee Hsien Yang have stated here was not challenged when she was alive. Right? So it's not only Lee Hsien Yang saying that the only wish of Lee Kuan Yew is to demolish the house. Right? But Lee Hsien Yang also said the same thing. And she have actually cited the various emails, documented proof that was his father's will. So it makes my belief much stronger that this particular letter, was written by LKY when he felt that, bo pian Lim Pei have created a monster, and these buggers are going against my wish and will. Never mind, if you want to do it, don't make it a temple. That's what he's basically asking. If you want to do it, you want to defy me. Right? Don't make it into a monument, a museum, or a temple. I want people to live in it. Okay? That's bo pian one. It is not that he accepted that gazetting. He knew that he cannot fight the very monster that he has created. The system of highly concentrated power within the few. This is my analysis. And it's strange. PAP government actually used this letter to twist around and to say that, oh, you see, LKY actually open, so-called, to other options. Nonsense. Basically nonsense. There are no options. His only wish is to demolish it. But he also knew that this bloody monster will defy him one day, and he has no legal rights or no means to go against what they want to do, and he actually basically begged them, okay, you can use all the power that I've created in the system to gazette my house, but please don't make it into a temple, make it into a monument, to ask the kindergarten children to visit and pray and go and qigong, right, to bow. Right? No, I don't want that. I want people to live in that, even when you gazetted it as a heritage. He's not saying that he have other options. He agrees to other options. He's just saying that I bo pian, I LL. But even you want to do that, don't let people make this into the temple. This is well-recorded view.
That applies to your house as well. I mean, I haven't been there, but people who have been there say you've not done much to renovate. And
look, I've told the cabinet when I'm dead, demolish it. Because I think I've seen other houses, Nehru's, Shakespeare, and it's a shambles after a while. People trot through and so on. And because of my house, the neighboring houses cannot build high. I said, demolish my house and change the planning rules, go up, my land value will go up.
no, that's part of Singapore's history.
No.
It's true.
Eh?
Is this part of Singapore's history? Because so many historical events took
No.
place, so it should be preserved.
You know, the cost of preserving it is an old house built over 100 years ago, no foundation. Damp comes up the wall because it has no foundation. So the piling around my house has led to cracks.
It's like the old National Library, no architectural significance, but when it was torn down, I think a lot of people still bemoan its loss today.
I don't think my daughter or my wife or I who lived in it, or my sons who grew up in it, will bemoan its loss.
You see, my dear Singaporeans, whether it's in writing, in emails, in his last wish, last will, or even in recorded interview, LKY is pretty consistent. And he has always been consistent in his view. But the PAP government right now want to twist the words which he has written to the cabinet to beg them not to turn his house into some temple. By saying that he's open to option. That's utter rubbish. Some people ask me, just now, I just read through the comment. Now that the house belongs to Lee Hsien Yang, why can't he just do anything to it? The simple answer is this. It's the monster that LKY has created. Land Acquisition Act. Preservation of Heritage Act. Right? Have put in a lot of power. Singaporeans supported this unknowingly when they voted for PAP. They changed so many laws over the years. They make them a monster that override you, then acquire your land against your wish, your house against your wish. And look at this way. If PAP itself didn't even want to respect its own founder, whom most Singaporeans respected, highly respected, or even highly respected all over the world, so-called, like for his contribution in peace, in development of Singapore, blah, 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 right? Didn't even want to chap his last will. Right? And want to do what they want. Who are you and me to them? Peanuts, like ants, low yi. This is the government you are voting, you must remember this. It is not about whether I want Oxley 38 to be demolished or to preserved. To me, it's never mind la, chin cai la. PAP is like that one. But it's the way they handle, the way they try to twist words, the way they persecute Lee Hsien Yang, the son of LKY, even if his son, the LKY, they persecute him. They defy LKY, even persecute his son for stamping his feet down, want to carry out what his father's last will is. Right? They can do it to these people, to LKY, to his son. What else they cannot do to you and me? And I must say, we as a collectively, as a nation, has voted in a big monster. Dictatorship. You know what is a dictator? A dictator who disregards, who have no respect to anyone except their own wish and interest. They will decide things in full consideration of their own self-interest first. They will even disrespect their Akong, LKY. Who else would they not disrespect? That is basically a dictatorship. Now, people have this wrong perception that dictatorship must be meant only one person. No, it's not. The whole political system can be a dictatorship. The system itself is a dictatorial in that sense. When they put up vaccine mandate, no job, no job, that is dictatorship. That's evil. I always say that's evil. But Singaporeans keep voting these people. If this Oxley Saga, the only thing that Oxley Saga showed me, right, is a huge amount of arrogance and disrespect they have for other people, even LKY, their own people, when it needs so. Their own Akong. It's scary. Who are we to them? Little ants. But we cannot just blame them. We are the ones, collectively as a people, who have voted them in. So when the election comes next time, please vote carefully. Vote with your mind and eyes open and your ears open. Please do not vote blindly in the coming election. And I have said this before. Democracy, the minimum criteria of a democracy is to have opposition. And if Singaporeans do not support opposition in a democracy, there will never be a democracy. I hope you support us, not only for this election, for the long run. So please, whatever little amount that you have, you can make donation, right? Or even help us during the election, assentor, proposer, right? Counting agent, polling agent. We need all help. We are very small. People's Power Party is very small. We have just conducted our CC election, the party congress, ordinary party congress. We have elected a new CEC. Right? We'll be soon announcing the new lineup, our leadership. But these party colleagues of mine all stick their head up, to be a CC members, to be a treasurer, to be a chairman. They really stick their head out. Why? Look, if PAP government doesn't vote up LKY, can they persecute us? They can persecute Lee Hsien Yang. Who else they cannot persecute? So to me, My party colleagues are the brave warriors. Right? I did not force them to take this up, but they are willing to do it. Do not let your brave warriors die without support. Died for nothing. Right? So I urge everyone, give us your support in whatever ways, whether it's donation, whether it's during election, come and help us. We must make a difference this time around to tell them, no, not that we want to demolish what Oxley 38. Please respect your own founders, and please respect the person which majority of Singaporeans have looked up to as the leader that brought us prosperity. Thank you and good night.